Hello everyone, I am Sheldon Owen, Extension Wildlife Specialist with the West Virginia University Extension Service. Today we are at the West Virginia University Research Forest right outside of Brewston Mills. I'm along with my colleague,
Dave McGill. I'm the Forest Resources Extension Specialist, and today we're going to be looking at some of these logs that are down on the forest floor and kind of seeing what kind of habitats they create for organisms and plants and things like that.
Well, when we're thinking about habitat out in our forests, what are the three main components of habitat? Food, water, and shelter. Or a lot of times when we talk about wildlife, we talk about cover, because they don't build their own shelter. They just use what is available to find cover, to find protection. And one of the things we commonly overlook are just these down, rotten logs, trees that have fallen in the woods, or a limb that has fallen off, and as it is sitting on the forest floor, it's decaying, it's rotting, and it creates this great little microhabitat, if you will, because it's providing cover for a lot of our small salamanders, maybe even mice, rodents, voles that could be using this. And as it decays, it's also creating a great place for insects. So as insects are growing inside of these logs, and they're feeding on some of these logs as they are decaying, and it's providing protection for those as well.
Yeah, one of the organisms that sometimes we overlook when we see one of these large logs on the forest floor are the fungi, and they are actually the ones creating this habitat. Different types of wood decay fungi, they get in there, their little strands of hyphae grow and decompose the wood and make it softer and absorb more moisture for, creating your microsites for these small creatures.
So it doesn't look like much, right? And when this tree fell, it made a noise or not, or made a sound or not, it's definitely an important component of our forest and woodland floors across West Virginia. And it doesn't have to be a very large log, if we look along the length of this one, this is a tree that is fallen over, but it could just be a limb or some bark, it's exfoliating bark that is fallen off. Anything that creates that cover can create a microhabitat for a lot of different species.
The moss creates the initial habitat. Of course, it holds moisture very well, and if you look under here, it's actually probably developing a little soil, but these little birch seedlings, they'll grow and they'll put roots down, and the roots will extend all the way down into the ground, and then when the log decomposes, you'll have these trees called stool trees that are kind of standing, and they can be 6-8 feet tall. Yeah, so if you are collecting moss for a terrarium or a fairy garden, something like that, you just kind of come up to the log, lift it up, and it comes up in a mat. But you don't want to take too much, because you want to leave a space, and you want to leave some other plants, other moss here, so it regenerates that spot that you collect it from. So if you look under here, you can see a lot of this material that's already decomposed on the tree itself. You can see, you can actually pull some of this stuff up. It's actually very soft materials, like compost. And so, all these white things, that's fungi that's continuing to break that down and create a better, habitat for small little creatures.
So if you were to take all of the salamanders that are around here and the reptiles that are around here on our forest floor and kind of pile it up, the biomass that will result from that is larger than piling up all the birds or piling up all the mammals that are found down here. So, it's always a good idea. Maybe you can see that my hands are still wet, because these amphibians will absorb any type of chemical or water and even oxygen through their skin. If we're handling these with dry hands, we're actually drying the salamander out. And so you want to make sure that your hands are wet when you're handling these. It makes it a little bit more difficult, because they are pretty quick and slick. It can escape quite easily, but you don't want to dry them out. And also keep in mind that whatever you have on your hand, if you have lotions or any type of perfume or anything that could be on your hand, that amphibian is now absorbing it when you're holding it like this. When it's the temperature is right and we have a little bit of rainfall, it's moist enough, these will come out and walk around on the forest floor. So you'll actually see them on top of the leaf litter that's on the ground. But because they have to stay in moist environments, as the leaf litter dries out or the conditions above ground dry out, they'll actually dig down into the ground looking for that moisture. And it could be 6 inches to a foot, maybe even 2 feet deep, that they're digging down looking for that moisture to find the perfect environment, the perfect habitat for them to stay moist and stay alive. So what we found here is a juvenile form of our red-spotted newt. You can see the red spots along its back with kind of the black outline. Now these are juvenile, and we talked about how most of our amphibians, the young are in water and the adults are on land or can be on land, whereas the red-spotted newt, the juveniles are on land, and they can stay on land in this phase, and this is called the red eft phase, for maybe 2 years or more, 2 to 4 years. And so they're just walking around. You can see they're a little bit drier. They still need some moist conditions, but they're a little bit drier and can handle drier conditions than many of our other salamanders. But if you look at this coloration, that lets us know that there's something different about this species, and it is slightly toxic. So if a bird or something were to come along, or a snake to come along and try to eat this, it's very bitter tasting, so it will actually spit that out. It won't kill the animal if they eat it, but it can make them sick and gives them a bad taste. And if you pick these up, it won't make you sick, but it's always a good idea to make sure you wash your hands after you handle any animal to make sure that you're not picking up anything that it could be carrying. So when you're out flipping over logs, maybe flipping rocks, always be careful, because you don't know what's underneath it. We do have some venomous snakes, 2 species of venomous snakes that occur here in West Virginia, and we don't want you to be bitten by those. So whenever you're flipping a log or flipping a rock, you always want to kind of flip it and roll it towards you. So if there's a snake on the opposite side, it's away from you, and you can, if you needed to, you could quickly drop it back in and keep yourself protected. But just keep in mind that we do have venomous snakes out there, and be safe. Be snake aware when you're out in the woods looking around to make sure that you're protecting yourself. Never pick up a snake, because we always want to know, they're fun to handle and they're fun to see, but you always want to know and make sure which species of snake it is, because these venomous snakes can bite and will bite if you pick one up, and it could cause some serious harm.
Okay, I think today we looked around at some of these logs, what's under them, the small microsites of these trees that have fallen, and creating great places for small creatures to live.
Found some pretty interesting critters so far. We found a eastern redback salamander, the red F stage of the eastern spotted newt, and we also found, what else did we find?
Slimy, but it got away.
We saw a slimy salamander, but we missed it. We found one of our dusky salamanders out here. So it's a great opportunity to get out and explore and find some new critters. Across West Virginia, we have 35 different species of salamanders. Now, they don't occur everywhere, so some only occur in small areas, like the Cheat Mountain salamander only occurs up in high elevations around Cheat Mountain. And so you may not find it. And so as you go out in your backyards and explore, there may be some different salamanders that you may find. But remember, as you're going out and you're looking, we encourage you to explore and find these things, but always leave the habitat, the area, as you found it. And so if you flip a rock over, flip a log over, always put it back and place it where you found it, because something's using that for protection and for cover. And keep your hands wet and keep your hands clean when you're handling these, because those salamanders are absorbing whatever's on your hands. And you can dry them out if you're handling them with dry hands. But we definitely encourage you to get out and explore, find the mushrooms, the fungi that are out there, the salamanders that are out there, insects that we really didn't talk about today.
One of the funnest things you could do here in West Virginia, explore the forest.
Cheap, easy, and a lot of fun, because you'll never know what you're going to find out there.